Okay, so the title of my project was Effects of Time of Day on First Grade Math Instruction. And the reason that I chose this study was we have a new schedule this year that has really been a problem, and as you know, we've talked about it many times about how it's a problem. We haven't been able to fit all of our content in. As the schedule is now, the students are out of the classroom for about 3 hours, and then after trying to teach math whole group has been a large problem. So we're spending a lot of time trying to redirect student behavior as opposed to being able to use that time for instructional reasons. I found a lot of studies that showed that primary students tend to be more off task during lunch. I decided that it'd be best to experiment, since we're doing the Engage Math series this year, to try to teach it in the morning for 2 weeks and then in the afternoon for 2 weeks, and just compare and contrast the results of off-task behavior. So I asked my students to asked my assistant to take anecdotal notes of off-task behavior and just try to keep track of how many times I'm having to redirect students. And then we also paid attention to how much time it was taking to teach each lesson to see if it seemed like we really were losing instructional time. The purpose of the study was to determine whether first grade students are more on task in the morning or afternoon, and whether they were losing the most important instructional time of the day by having specials in the morning, since that's been a change for us this year. So also I wanted to decide whether instruction time was being lost, as I've already said, because we don't want to be losing time that we already have. We already feel like we don't have enough time to get everything in. So this is the literature review. These are the articles that I found that shared, kind of what I was thinking. Student inattentiveness, there was a loss of instructional time due to off-task behavior in the educational setting, is a large issue that has been recognized by researchers and practitioners for over 100 years. Student inattentiveness is the biggest factor that accounts for loss of instructional time, so obviously that's kind of backing up what I was thinking. And when student behavior is most appropriate and when students are most able to learn should be important considerations when scheduling instructional times. Primary students' ability to learn. I found an article that said that primary teachers across the U.S. Are trying to avoid teaching right after lunch and at the end of the day because they're too wound up to learn, which is kind of what we've been talking about all year. And it's kind of hard to avoid that time when we don't have enough time to get everything in. And also that every educator has an understanding that they should plan meaningful instruction at a time that is most beneficial to their students. So as educators, we feel like we know what's best for our students, and that's why we think this is a problem. The shift of time of day preferences. I thought this article was really interesting because it talked about, like, during puberty, students start out wanting to learn in the mornings, and then at the end of the day, they lose attention. Or as they get older, their time of day preference shifts from morning to evening. So like we've talked about before, we feel like fourth graders are more capable of paying attention in the afternoons, and this kind of backs it up. It says during puberty, young people shift their time of day preference. So kind of like what we said before, younger students seem to be able to pay attention more in the morning and less likely in the afternoon, and that is actually a fact that it shifts. Early school start times force adolescents to work at a time that may be too early for them, which negatively affects school functioning. And at the age of 10, which would be right around fourth grade, students' sleep-wake schedule changes and they switch over to performing better in the afternoon or evening. And then it says some young people at this age need more time to wake up and clear their heads in preparation for learning. Those are just my references from where I found it. So my first research question was, what impact does time of day, morning versus afternoon, have on first grade students' ability to stay on task during whole group math instruction? The justification of the research method. This is the first year we've had this schedule, and it's been really difficult, like we've talked about. It seems to be a huge difference between student engagement in morning versus afternoon with my students. Other first grade teachers have noted that this schedule has been very challenging, and kindergarten teachers have had the same issue in the past, so even younger students. And it was to determine whether primary students need more frequent breaks in the afternoon. Also, I took took a poll with my class without them knowing why I was asking, and I just said, when do you think you focus the best? And 22 said they think they focus best in the morning, and 4 said they think they focus better in the afternoon. I thought that was really telling. And then I said, when I asked for potential reasons, one student said, I think I'm just more tired in the afternoon. And another student said, after we've been outside playing, it's hard to get focused again because we just want to play more, which I feel like I definitely see that happening. So my participants were, there were 26 first grade students ages 6 to 7, 14 girls and 12 boys. I have 4 IEPs. And then according to the map test, 15 students are above grade level, 6 are on, and 5 are below. So the instruments that I was going to use, I used the Engage Math series, and then note taking. And to make it a little more easy for my assistant to take notes, we put a key. P or distraction was PD. OT was off task, which would be like wandering eyes, playing with their desks or pencils, etc. And then focus issues were just not keeping up with the class or following directions or copying problems off the smartboard. And then we also tallied how many off-task behaviors were recorded altogether. So this is just the log that I used. It was just a roster. I covered up their names just so they wouldn't be, so it'd be kept confidential. It just made it easy. The student numbers went on the side and then just the date across. And then the key is at the bottom just to help with my assistant again and remind her of what those were. And I also used just a time log for the afternoon and morning. And I just chose this just to write down really quickly how many minutes each lesson took. And that way we could indicate whether instruction time was being lost. So to collect the data, I just taught the math whole group and then asked my assistant to keep track of that information. And then I taught it in the afternoon for a week and then in the morning for a week, and I just did the same thing. And then I was just looking at how much instruction time was lost, and I'm just going to compare and contrast the results that I had. So this was the first start from the week that I taught math in the afternoon. Oh wait, I'm sorry, this is the morning. So, each student across, you could see how many off-task behaviors there were. The total off-task behavior for in the morning was 62. And there were 17 on Monday, 6 on Tuesday, 15 on Wednesday, 13 on Thursday, and 11 on Friday. And there were 6 kids that laid their heads on their desks. But what's interesting is when you look at this is the morning, and then this is the afternoon. There were 87 off-task behaviors in the afternoon. There were 11 on Monday, 16 on Tuesday, 33 on Wednesday. I don't know what happened that day. Thursday, 21, and 6 on Friday. And there were 12 kids that laid their heads on their desks after having lunch and recess and all that. So here's where I start with my data analysis. Here are all the graphs. Out of the 149 instances of off-task behavior, which was combining morning and afternoon, 61% happened in the afternoon and 39% happened in the morning. So students appeared extremely tired and disengaged in the afternoon because they've been out of the classroom for so long. So here's a day of the week comparison. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Morning is green and afternoon is gray. It says there are more off-task behaviors prevalent in the morning or in the afternoon on 3 out of 5 days. And then it was more in the morning on Monday and Friday, which I think they were just off on those days anyway. And also, there was obviously more off-task behavior on Wednesday for both weeks, which I just thought was interesting. I don't know if it's just because in the middle of the week or what it was. This is each student's breakdown of morning and afternoon. The morning, once again, is green, and the afternoon is gray. 6 out of 26 were more off-task in the morning, and 12 out of 26 were more off-task in the afternoon. So if you look at each student, you can see where they were. I just chose 2 students that I knew were really good kids, that they try really hard, and they usually are pretty, they're pleasers, and they want to keep you happy, and they try all the time. And so I choose 2 just to compare. One student who tries really hard in the morning had 0 off-task behaviors, and in the afternoon had 7. And the same thing with another student had 2 in the morning and 8 in the afternoon. So I thought that was kind of telling, just because I mean, they're always trying, they're not behavior issues, but they still were way more off task in the afternoon. This is a breakdown of off-task behavior in the morning. So there were 6% off-task in the morning for our peer distraction, 44% were off-task behavior, and 49% was a focus issue. But when you look in the afternoon, what was interesting to me is there's 6% of a peer distraction in the morning, and there was 20% of a peer distraction in the afternoon. And I just kind of thought that's because they've been in social settings for like 3 hours, and they come back in and trying to get them to not be distracted by their peers is a lot more difficult. This is just a comparison of how many kids laid their heads on their desks. 6 were in the morning and 12 were in the afternoon, and it's probably just because they've been so tired from being worked up for so long. Here is a log of the time that I used for each lesson. This is the afternoon, so 58, 64, 76, 66, and 54. Each engaged lesson is expected to take about 60 minutes, and so you can tell that there are several that went above, took longer than they should have, whereas you only see that a couple times. I mean, really, even just the 62 is right around where it should have been, but there was mostly right around what it should have been, so it didn't seem like we lost a lot of instructional time. This is a graph that shows the amount of off-task behaviors in comparison to the time spent. So when you look at Monday, like Monday morning, there were 17 off-task behaviors, and it took 65 minutes to teach the lesson. What was interesting to me was like a day like Wednesday, there were 33 off-task behaviors in the afternoon, and the lesson took 76 minutes. So it took 16 minutes longer than it should have, which is likely because I was spending so much time trying to get them engaged. So if you really took the time to break it down, you kind of see that it does seem like there is a correlation. So just in summary, there were 25 more documented off-task behaviors present when math was taught in the afternoon. There were more off-task behaviors 3 out of 5 days in the afternoon. 12 out of 26 were more off-task in the afternoon than the morning. Students who are typically pleasers, try really hard, were more off-task in the afternoon. There were more peer distractions in the afternoon, and the time log indicates off-task behaviors may be causing a lack of instructional time. This is for us to fill out at the end to kind of think of ways that we could try to help combat that, aside from like a schedule change. So reflection, for this classroom question, I just learned it was difficult. It wasn't difficult to use action research. If there's a problem in my room, I could just very easily do a little study like this and try to come up with a new solution that's applicable and relevant to teachers and schools. It allows people to test theories and share results. And I was able to break down and analyze results that were directly relevant and beneficial to my class. So this is the other question that I had to come up with, and this was more focused on PLCs. It says, what strengths and weaknesses does the Trust on Our Team survey reveal about Sutton Elementary's first grade teen PLC? So participants, which is you guys, there were 2 K1 split teachers, and I just listed how many years we've all been teaching, 2 first grade teachers. We all teach reading, math, and science. The instruments that we use is the survey that consisted of 28 questions. Each of us put either that we disagreed or neutral or agreed for each question, and whether it was very important was a 1, somewhat important was a 2, and not important was a 3. And I chose this because I think we're really great friends, but I just wondered how much we really do trust one another. And there seems to be a lack of common planning lately, since 2 teachers are teaching a K1 split and 2 are teaching first grade. So I was just looking to see if there was anything that we could do to better that. And then the survey is on page 1. So I told all the team members about the survey and handed one to each of you. All surveys were administered on your own time, and you were put it back in my mailbox. So these are just the pictures of the surveys that you guys filled out. You remember them. To analyze the results, the questions were sorted into categories, so planning, comfort or trust, and competency. And in all three planning questions, all responses were either disagree or neutral, and they were scored with a 1 for very important. The 3 planning questions that seem to be a unanimous concern were my colleagues willingly share their materials, resources, and ideas with me. I believe that everyone on my team makes meaningful contributions to our work, and I believe that everyone on my team is pulling in the same direction. So, our strengths based on the survey is that we trust one another and we're comfortable with one another, and we love, we think the other is competent and we enjoy spending time with one another. I think that's pretty clear. So the weakness is that we're not always willingly sharing materials, we don't feel that the other equally contributes, and we're not always sure we're pulling in the same direction. So our next steps that we could do would be to create like a PLC mission or vision, and plan together at least 3 times a week, and to have a specific agenda when we plan, just so we're not just kind of lollygagging around when we're in there, and provide extra copies and resources so we're all able to choose whether we want to use them, and analyze assessments together so we can bounce ideas off one another. And that is all. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm gonna look at the pie chart again.
Okay. I mean, I thought the graphs really broke it down. I think they're
it's
pretty
interesting. It definitely backs what we already
Yeah,
thought.
that's what I think too. This one?
No, the one that had 2. Weren't there 2 and they compared? That
This?
was,
Yeah.
yeah, what is the dark color, the blue?
The-
Off-task behavior?
This is off-task behavior, so that's more like keeping up with work.
What is the percentage on this one? I can't see it.
47% off-task
And that was
behavior, 44.
44.
So that's just keeping up with us.
And what's the orange one?
The orange is focus issues. So that's like
Oh.
playing with desks and things like that. I think they're more tired in the afternoon, so they're less likely to like play in their desks.
And I think that's why we feel like we have less time to teach because we're dealing with so much
Yeah, that's what I think too.
behavior.
I don't think people realize how much time we're spending redirecting and not able to just get the content in. We already feel like we have such a loss of time anyway with the schedule change.
Interesting.